Just heard Drew saying that after this discharge for a history of misconduct in the Navy plus an arrest record, which would have been clearly known, that this man was able to get the mid-level security clearance and allowed to have access to all these bases for the Navy. How in the world could that happen?
The way it happens is poor background check. Initially, most people contracting anyway, when they get into that, some of them are given an interim clearance when it's at the secret level. And that interim clearance means the background check really hasn't been done yet, but it's in the process of being done. So he may have started out in the contracting world with an interim clearance, and then a background check should have been done. Now that form that you just saw, it's generally an SF-86, is filled out, and the person themselves has to fill in all those details of their background. So he has to list those arrests, he has to list the time, the place, who did it, and if he doesn't list them, it would take the investigator then doing NCIC checks and other criminal background checks, running his fingerprints and things like that to come up with the information that he left out. And if he had left anything substantial out, it would have been an immediate denial of the clearance.
But you're saying that you could lie and there would be an interim period where those lies may not prevent you from having clearance until they catch them.
Yes.
Is what you're saying.
They might not be uncovered right away, and so he might have the interim clearance, start working, because all the interim clearance means is, okay, nothing on the surface immediately strikes us as preventing this guy from getting a clearance.
Kate, how concerned should we be about this? Because this seems to be, you know, I mean, a loophole. You now, of course, you had people like the leaker Edward Snowden, who also had security clearances that people question. I mean, how concerned should we be, though, about this particular incident, and that a person like this, with this background, which so obviously is a problem and is so easily available even on a quick internet search, could have had this kind of clearance and security?
Well, that's just it. If I was going to rent my home to somebody and I did a basic criminal background investigation, I would have seen the 2010 and the 2004 thing pop up. So that is a big question. Here's another question, though. I understand whether he was supposed to start this job today or last week. I understand the shooter was in the area, staying at a hotel less than 2 miles away for the last 2 weeks. So being somebody who used to be in the military, I guarantee you he just didn't wake up this morning and say, I'm going to go onto this secure naval facility and start shooting people. I guarantee you, if you start looking at the surveillance footage over the last 2 weeks, you're going to find him at least attempt, if not actually gain access to this facility, probably walk around and basically do a reconnaissance and see, hey, here's a cafeteria, that's 3 floors up, that would be a great place to set up shop and start shooting. And I think that's going to come out probably here in the next 12 to 24 hours.
Which is a really important point. And Drew Griffin, I know you wanted to jump in there on something Cade just said.
Yeah, just to clarify, he was working in Arlington, Virginia on a similar contract in September 3rd, so he was in the area. And
so
what Thomas Hoshko told me was he may have indeed gone to the Navy Yard last week. They're not sure if that was actually to start work or to get some kind of additional clearance or a security clearance for that base to begin work this week. So he was definitely in the area working first in Arlington, Virginia, and then getting ready to or starting this job here at the Navy Yard.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see, Kate, if it does, if that video comes back and those, you know, when they check all those dates of the swipe of the ID card, if that comes up. What about the personal interview, Kate, which Drew also reported on, that, you know, you fill out this form and all that information should be in the form, and they should check it, and then you do this interview. They also didn't pick anything up in the interview about this guy. Does that surprise you?
Well, it does a little bit, because even if you're given an interim clearance like he was initially given, I understand he was also, it was basically recerted, or he regained the clearance again months later. So that's something huge that was missed if it was. Again, like I said, you could go on the internet and do a basic criminal background investigation on somebody that maybe you want to rent your house to, and that's going to pop up. We need to find out why it didn't.
And Tim, is this something that's going to turn out to be part of a broader problem in the military? I mean, you have people in Congress already calling out. Susan Collins is just one of several who are saying we have a serious problem here. Do we have a serious problem with the vetting of contractors?
Obviously we do, Erin. Not just with contractors. I mean, look at Hassan at Fort Hood. We didn't look at his background very well, and he didn't have that much of a clearance, but just the personality himself that wasn't looked at. So I think we have a problem. It's not just on the surface. We need to dig deeper. In the FBI, our top secret clearances were required before we could start day one employment. So there was a full background check. Everything was uncovered. Other agencies like this, where you're doing IT work only at the secret level, I think there's a little bit of a lackadaisical attitude there at DoD because they probably look much more at the higher clearances and are less concerned about the lower ones.
Becomes something it seems like
Yeah,
that is
and
done by
Erin,
rote. Yeah, final word, Kate.
Just to add something real quick, for the type of clearance that this shooter got, you need to understand that there is no psychological screening for that type of a clearance.